US President Donald Trump is hosting UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the Oval Office today. Starmer has reiterated his call for a US security guarantee in Ukraine to deter Russia from invading again. However, ahead of the meeting, Trump has said that there will be no security guarantees for Ukraine from the US. He has once again asked Europe to shoulder the burden. This comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is set to arrive in Washington on Friday to sign the minerals deal. The president is hoping for US support in his meeting with Trump. Joining us first to discuss the latest updates we've had in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we're joined by Keith Vaz, who is the chairman of Integration Foundation, and he's joining us from London. Keith, thank you very much for being here today. Of course, Sir Keir Starmer is in the US and will be chatting with Donald Trump. This follows a conversation with Emmanuel Macron a couple of days ago as well. It seems clear that Trump is saying the ball is in the European nations' court in terms of defending Ukraine, but is there anything that Starmer can do at the 11th hour to try and change Trump's opinion, in your opinion?
Good morning, Josh. I think the problem is when you are visiting someone like the President of the United States and the agenda is to try and get him to give some security guarantees for Ukraine, and before that meeting takes place, it's now 5 o'clock in Washington, D.C., so obviously the Brits are preparing for that meeting. I don't know what time it's going to be in the Oval Office, but they're preparing for it. And before you actually get into the Oval Office, the main item of the agenda has been taken away from you, which is a very clear indication from President Trump that he expects the European countries to shoulder the burden in terms of the cost, while at the same time doing a side deal with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who we understand is due in Washington as the next big foreign leader, to get a deal which will give the United States precious minerals coming from Ukraine in order to pay for past help that America has given. Now, this is a big blow, I think, in terms of the meeting, and it will take all Keir Starmer's skills, and he has these skills as a former prosecutor, former director of public prosecutions in the United Kingdom. He clearly has persuasive skills. He has to use all those skills in order to persuade Donald Trump to change his mind. I mean, he can learn something from Macron. Macron is a very touchy-feely president, as I've said before. But actually, what is required is a different approach, maybe more like Justin Trudeau or the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. He has to be different. He can't be the same as Macron, but the agenda has changed.
Trump has also commented on NATO, something that, of course, Ukraine have been very keen on securing, NATO membership, that is. He said that it's probably the reason that the war has started. In terms of any security for Ukraine, if they do sign a ceasefire deal, what do you think that will look like, considering Russia's staunch opposition to peacekeeping forces within Ukraine?
Well, it seems that they are prepared to accept a deal with America. I think that if the Americans say, do a deal with us, and we're going to send our troops in to guarantee it, the Russians don't seem to mind. But they are saying, do a deal with us, let's have peace in Ukraine, but we won't have the Europeans in there. So the question for Keir Starmer and the European Union and those in Europe who are not in the EU is, how do you guarantee that peace? How do you know once the deal is done that Russia will not move forward and take over other parts of Ukraine? That's the difficult part. If you just sign everything away on the basis of a deal, an economic decision, and you don't have those security guarantees, who is going to keep the keeper? Who is going to make sure that this deal is going to go through? Because the international organizations, I'm afraid nobody takes any notice of them. UN resolutions are passed. Nobody takes any notice of them. ICC decisions are taken. Nobody takes any notice. So it's got to be done on a handshake and a signing of a piece of paper. In Donald Trump's case, of course, it's the handshake, and probably in Putin's case as well. So these two presidents can make a deal, but the Europeans are clearly very worried that once that deal is made, who is going to guarantee the peace? It's not just about Ukraine, by the way. Of course, the security of Ukraine is very important. It's about the countries that are the nearest to Ukraine, like Moldova and other countries, those who share a border, who are going to be very concerned. So this isn't the end of this drama. After today, this weekend, Keir Starmer will be hosting his own conference in London, and they're all going to be sharing information as to what they're going to do about the situation. But clearly, Europe has to step up. It has no independent defense force other than NATO. Unless America is going to leave NATO, Europe can't start creating its own force independent of its allies. That would be a step too far as our allies are concerned.
Yes, also joining us to discuss these new developments that we've had in the Russia-Ukraine war and the work towards peace is Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, who's a communication of BCMF at the BRICS Culture Media Forum, who is joining us from Moscow. Dr. Dvoryanov, we have heard from people on this programme and also experts elsewhere referencing the appeasement after the Second World War, or at the start of the Second World War with Germany, and some have likened it to this situation that we're currently seeing. Keith there spoke about a deal between Russia and the United States. Is there a feeling, and what is your response to allegations that this appeasement could lead to further conflicts down the line?
I think it's a very, very troublesome situation. And I think it's very worrying because international diplomacy is built on stability. It's built on having your allies, having your tribes, and the tribes always voting together. Now, as we saw in the Middle East, some of these countries, like France and the United Kingdom, are abstaining at the UN in the Security Council because their position has shifted. Now, America is shifting not only the goalposts, but they're shifting stadiums. It's not even at the same stadium, if you use a footballing metaphor. It's somewhere completely different. They want to make a deal at this level, and they want the Europeans at this level to be able to fill in the gaps as we go along. The key thing is whether Volodymyr Zelenskyy will basically have enough of this and say, I'm not staying anymore. I think I've done my bit for my country. Everyone says that I'm an obstacle to peace. Well, let's hand this over and get somebody else to do it. It could be catastrophic. I think there were reasons why Russia went into the Ukraine. The issue now is, have those reasons been dealt with? After all these killings, all these deaths, what Trump is saying in a very simplistic way, he does diplomacy. And you've got to admire his clarity. I mean, he does, as a politician, do what he says he's going to do. There's no kind of sub clause here. There's no subtext. He says what he feels and he gets on and does it. That's why he's admired so much, not just in America, but also in other parts of the world, because rarely do you get a politician who says that. He's been very clear. This is an economic deal that the United States want to make now. They want the Europeans to take the burden sharing. They want Europeans to provide the security force, and they want the Europeans to pay. So he wants this to be a European issue while he goes around trying to reduce that massive debt that the United States has with China and other countries. So I don't think one can be accusing Donald Trump of not being clear. He is very clear where he stands. The issue for the European powers is how do they move together in order to bolster the Ukrainian regime and protect themselves. Because in the end, this is all about protecting themselves as well. It's, of course, there are high principles of peace and security, and we must stop one country invading another. But of course, as we know, the history of our country and the history of America, not America in terms of invading other countries, but in terms of supporting other countries, is that they just go after the small countries and do what they want with it. Trump is different because Trump is being very clear where he stands. What the European countries have got to be clear at is where they stand and whether they're prepared to pay. I mean, only yesterday in the House of Commons, Keir Starmer announced a cut in international aid. Can you imagine a left of centre Labour government cutting international aid and boosting defence expenditure? This is completely outside our philosophy and what we believe in. but he's doing it in response to what's happening in the Oval Office. So this is an important meeting that's happening today. There's no doubt about that, Josh. But the trouble is the agenda has been changed completely. Trump has already said no to Keir Starmer. So it's going to take all Keir Starmer's skills to try and change the no into a maybe, or even dramatically into a yes.
Yes, and joining us now is Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov. Thank you very much for being here. I want to look at a conversation that is to be had between Russia and the US. The Kremlin have said that any talks and any deal will take some time. But what do you think Vladimir Putin is looking for in a deal with the United States, and how might that impact the war with Ukraine?
I am, first of all, thank you for this question. It's a very important question for all of us. We feel some anxiety about the future generations. And first of all, I would like to tell that I completely agree with the previous speaker that modern diplomacy was completely destroyed, because modern diplomacy was based on the particular interests of each different countries. And right now we should refresh and restart new strategic vision of all of us, where we'll base diplomacy not on interests, but on the principles. That is most important, because all of us were human beings. And of course, all humanity, all this civilization was created by God, and we have some purpose, some goal of life. And the criterion of progress is not only economical level, is not only luxury life, is not only to be strong and power and fight with each other like animals. No, not at all. We are human beings. And we have another purpose, another vision, another mission as well, which is spirituality, which is spiritual research about our spiritual identity. Identity is the most important. That we're not only individuals like selfish and self-satisfied and greedy persona. That's why I completely believe that Donald Trump is a hero of modern age. Why? Because he is such a kind, extremely extraordinary hero who can transform enmity to friendship. Look, before it was a very deep conflict between East and West. Everybody hate each other. Right now we have a chance to sit on the table, to start negotiate peacemaking dialogue. And during this peacemaking dialogue, at least we start with a smile, with a trust to each other. I can see that my colleague is smiling right now. And I'm so happy. It gives me some joy, real joy. Because, see, all this mood of fighting and conflict, that is a type of ignorance. Absolutely, I'm absolutely true. I'm speaking like a religious philosopher. I'm speaking like
Dr. Dvoryanov, sorry to interrupt you. I get what you're saying, but there also needs to be an understanding that the fighting is ongoing. 166 Russian drones striking Ukraine last night. North Korean troops now re-engaging, having been sent from the country to fight against Ukrainian forces. So although there is positivity, although there is happiness and joy over the fact that Russia and the US are bringing together formerly divided nations, there is still a reality on the ground that the war between Russia and Ukraine is continuing, and without a peace deal being agreed by both sides, that's going to continue. So in that instance, what is Vladimir Putin's mindset moving forward, looking at peace and whether that means concessions as well?
One more time, can you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. We're looking at an active war, a war that is continuing. 166 Russian drones attacking Ukraine overnight. North Korean troops are now back fighting against Ukrainian forces, or will be very soon, according to South Korean sources. So although there is positivity around the unity between Russia and the US and the new unity, there is still loss of life and there is still fear amongst people living in the war-torn regions. So how do we get past that, and what does Russia need in any negotiations to make sure that it's happy with the outcome of these peace talks?
First of all, we understand when any one particular death is always tragedy, and 1,000 deaths, and that is like only statistics. When we're speaking about the war, of course, in the war it should be some loss to each country. That's why the war is a big challenger, and that is a big catastrophe for all humanity. Regarding Russian Federation, Russia will not stop to complete our spiritual mission, which is, first of all, we should remove all Nazi movement inside Ukraine.